And we're live. Good morning, everybody. This is Ragin with our special guest, Dave Wimblett. This is episode 24. Ragin.
Ragin.
All right, you guys, welcome to Ragin with. If you are tuning in, wherever it is you're tuning in from, please hit that subscribe button and the share button so you can share this experience with your friends. We are live streaming to Ragin AVC. Hit the button. Geek Insider, Comics and More New Jersey, as well as Indie Vault Radio. Thank you for tuning in. And our special guest, episode 24, kind of a milestone, I would say. Dave Wimblett, you've got the Hoards of Surrey campaign happening right now. Let me drop the card. Hello.
There
Good morning.
Hello. How you doing?
Well, it isn't morning. It is about
It's
5
4
hours.
o'clock.
Yeah.
In the afternoon, yeah.
4 o'clock in the afternoon. All right. So while I'm having coffee, you're probably getting ready for a cocktail.
Well, not quite. Maybe after this. It's a little early for me, but yeah, maybe I might do that.
Oh, it's noon somewhere for me. So I'm
Listen,
like,
I'm
hey,
having a
drink
day
up
off,
if you got
so I should be drinking, frankly. I don't know what I'm doing.
So the Hordes of Surrey. Now this is the second one in the series, yes?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, first one came out on Kickstarter last year at roughly the same time. I was hoping to get the second one out a bit earlier than I ended up doing, but life got in the way a bit. But yeah, we're just like 2 weeks early from a year last time.
Yeah, that whole life thing, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that pandemic.
And nobody
as well,
gets out alive. So I mean, what is that?
Yeah, I know. It's a bum deal, isn't it? And the toddler. I mean, having a 2.5-year-old, that's just really takes up a lot of my time. He gets in the way quite a lot, I have to admit.
I know those rotten kids too, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to live my best life, and he's over there.
Well, you know, one of the things that we love to do here over at Ragin is to get the creator journey. So, I mean, you're juggling a toddler. You're trying to get this comic book out. Book 2. You put in some time, obviously. Was this always a lane that you wanted to do? Was comic books the thing?
To be honest, no. Probably most people that you meet say yes and that they've been into comics their whole life. But I only really got into comics in about 2005, I think. I was in my 20s and I'd finished university. And I don't think I'd even read a comic book, to be honest, until I was in Japan. I lived in Japan for a little while and met someone there. And over a beer, he was trying to convince me that Batman was all I ever needed in terms of entertainment, and that I should. He like listed off all the comics that I should read, and I was like, I was humouring him a little bit. I was like, yeah, okay. I mean, I like the films. And then I borrowed one off him, The Long Holiday, Jeff Loeb and Tim. Is it Tim Sale or Tim Seeley? I always get them mixed up. And it was just life changing, to be honest. And I haven't stopped reading comics since. And so I guess it was around that time. And so it was quite late in life, really, that I struck upon this passion.
This whole passion, right? Yeah. So I'm kind of curious about that, because you would think in Japan, anime would be the big thing, right?
Yeah, no, everyone read that on the trains, regardless of the age of the person, children, men, older men, women, everyone read anime or manga. And it just never had appealed to me, to be honest. And I probably should have tried harder than I did. But when you're in Japan, it's hard to find English language stuff. You have to, go out of your way because, obviously they're all Japanese. So I never really, I kind of did the American approach whilst in Japan, which is a bit strange. But there was a lot of Americans over there, a lot of Canadians. over there. And I had this guy who was kind of hooking me up. He was my dealer, my comics dealer.
Your comics dealer.
Yeah. And so I was just like, week after week, I was like, yes, give me more,
Like,
give me more.
I need my fix, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And so ever since then, I mean, I used to, as soon as I came back home, I went to local libraries and I was borrowing books constantly, because I just couldn't believe that comics were in the library. That was like a revelation to me. To me, a library, you know, was a dusty building with old books and no picture books. Yeah. And then when I found there was a massive comic section, I was like, right, that's it. I don't need to go anywhere else. I'm just going to live here for a while. Yeah.
Now, so now what, I mean, are you a writer?
Yeah, so
artist?
I'm the writer, just the writer. Yeah, sadly, my art skills left me when I was about 12.
Oh, yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I remember there was a TV program over here called Blue Peter, and they had these. It was quite iconic in British culture, but they had these little badges that you could be awarded if you sent in some artwork and it was deemed good enough and worthy of a Blue Peter badge. It was like a big cultural thing over here. And I remember when I was about 8 or 10 or something, I did this great A3 picture of a load of pelicans and I sent it in and I got a badge. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I must be a great artist.
Right.
Turns out a few years later, no, I'm not any good whatsoever. So yeah, I stick to the writing and I pay people to do the good bit.
Which is probably why it takes that long. I'm going through that struggle myself because I'm a writer, first writer of prose. And only this year did I, this past year I've spent scripting things out and learning the comic book business.
Yeah.
So since you've been kind of a late bloomer, what has been the biggest struggle or the biggest learning curve that you've had to overcome when it came to creating your comic books?
It's a good question. The writing of it I actually found fairly easy. I think because I watch a lot of TV and film, I kind of had the idea of what a script should be like in terms of, you know, stage directions type thing and describing a panel and then writing the dialogue. So I just kind of got on with it and worked out. I didn't look up any specific software or anything like that you were supposed to use or a technique. I just maybe did some cursory research on how to lay out and then just went for it. So the hardest bit I think was probably working with an artist. Not that Rory Donald, who's the artist, he's great to work with, not a problem at all, but it's understanding how to work together and how to get what you want from it and how to take on board his opinion, his expertise, and get to the right place. And the kind of negotiating / putting your foot down a little bit, because I'm quite a passive, laid back kind of guy. So that kind of bit, that part of the process was definitely the hardest bit for me. How about you? What did you find?
I find that when I'm writing, a lot of times I give the credit to the muse or the characters in my head, you know, because sometimes I surprise myself with the things that come out of my head. But then communicating with other people. And again, I think as a writer, I'm probably a little bit more passive like you when it comes to negotiating, because I take direction from the you know, imaginary friends. So there's that. But at the same time, you know, when you have this vision in your head and you're trying to put it down, it's really hard for me to go from prose to scripting comics and then back again, because then all of a sudden I'll like, where are my words? Where'd they go? Where'd they go? And so communicating that and finding something, you know, finding an artist, which I'd love to hear about your journey. I went through DeviantArt and through a couple of friends because I have different stories and things like that. So the same artist is not appropriate for each story.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
What was your journey like?
So Rory, I think it was just, as you say, I was on a couple of forums that people had recommended for where to find artists, and I didn't have too much luck with that. I'm not sure if the best quality people were there as such. And you know, if you're looking to, I think initially most people probably think, right, I'll try and find someone to collaborate because you know, I don't really have a budget as such. Right. And so, you know, you get what you pay for, don't you? If you're willing to pay for it, you're going to get a better quality. So it took a while to come to that realization. And then I think Instagram, I realized, was really a hotbed of art and finding people. And so I would just reach out. I can't even remember how I got from one to the next. Actually, no, I would find one that I liked find his Instagram or her Instagram account and then see people that they followed, and I would just scroll through their list, and I would judge it almost just based on their little icon or whatever you call it. And I'd go, I'll click on this one and just see what I think of their art, and just build up a whole list of people that I liked, and kind of save them all, and reach out and just, you know, start to have a chat and have a dialogue. And then I think with Rory, I actually ended up contacting someone else, and he said, well, actually I'm really busy, but I recommend my friend Rory, he's really good and similar kind of style. And actually I was kind of skeptical. I was like, you know, I want to be the judge, you know, it's my story. But actually he was right. Rory's art is so ideal for the type of and the tone of story that I'm telling with the Horse of Surrey. And so it was really kind of maybe meant to be, I don't know. And it was in my ballpark of a budget, because, you know, you can pay an artist £10 a page, or you can pay them £150 a page, and one of those is sustainable and one of them isn't. And Rory isn't £10 a page by any means, but, you know, he's able to be realistic working with Rory.
Oh yeah, I mean, for myself, I've got a story. I've managed 8 pages paid for, because you know, when it comes to creating a campaign, I've learned that what I really want to do is make sure that I have a complete book that's out there and ready to print as soon as the funds are released. Because I have a book of prose, and the biggest mistake that I made, I think, was having a tier that said, "Oh, I'll write a new story for you for this amount of money," and then life happened, and it was like, "Oh man," you know.
Yeah, you got to fit that.
So it got pushed and pushed and pushed, and, you know, now way over deadline and stuff. And then I see other campaigns, you know, like Daphne Lage, J.D. Calderon. They do these campaigns, and when they're promoting the book, you know, they're already holding the print proof, and so, you know, you're going to get it. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to be. How far are you as far as, you know, with the campaign? Is everything set to go, just ready for print?
So I've taken a different tact in that I'm just a bit risk averse, I suppose. So I wanted to make sure that we were going to reach our funding target before kind of having to pay Rory for all of the art, not having the, you know, necessarily having the funding for it available. So what happened with the first one was that I paid for 4 or 5 pages fully complete up front, and used those for the campaign. And I really did appreciate that all of the backers were trusting that, you know, I would follow through and fulfill and provide the comic as promised. And I did do that. It was on time, and I'd like to think that that's one thing people can take from me, is that I will deliver on what I say I will. I'm trustworthy. So I hope that the first campaign proved that. And so we've gone for a similar approach for this one. So the book is not ready yet, but it will be in a couple months. And Rory has he's gone a bit further than with the first one, where we had just really got the first preview pages complete, and the thumbnails are laid out, I think. But with this one, we've done the thumbnails and we've done the pencils for all of the pages. He's done full colors for 4 pages, and he's started the ink part for 3 or 4 pages now. So we're
so you've got a good chunk of that.
A good chunk of it is done.
And being that, I mean, he worked on book 1, and now he's working on book 2. So now you've got an established relationship. Things are going a little bit faster.
Yeah, exactly.
With your first experience, okay, so Hoards of Surrey 1 was your first Kickstarter?
Yeah, first ever comic that I tried to, or first ever script that I wrote for fun that I tried to actually turn into a comic.
Wow.
And Kickstarter seemed like the best way to reach people, because I could pay Rory to do it, and it would be hard financially, but I could do it. But then it would be, how do I actually get this in front of people? And so I really see Kickstarter, and I don't know what you think, but I really see Kickstarter as finding the audience that is interested in comics. Because I didn't feel the best way, I guess I thought the best way to do that would be to go to Comic-Cons, but with only having one comic, I don't know how appealing that would be to people passing by. So I didn't feel like that was the way to start. So there's a baked-in audience, isn't there, to Kickstarter for comics, and so it seemed like that was the logical place to start if you're starting from nowhere, or from the ground up. So yeah, so that's what we did.
That must have been really scary for you to hit the button the first time, because
Yeah,
there's so many components to it. You want to have the proper tiers. It's like, how do I price this correctly? Do I have enough graphics? Is there a video? And then just, are the descriptions going to snag you, and get everybody's attention? And I do see Kickstarter as in a way, even though it's a crowdfunding platform, there are a lot of social media aspects to it. As long as you're building up the following, and you can see what your friends are supporting. So that's kind of cool. And so you can kind of spy on them and go, oh, what do they have in their, in the section there? What are they supporting and keeping an eye out on? What was the biggest, when you were putting together your campaign for the first time, what was the biggest challenge then for you?
I don't know. I think I felt that I was quite self-assured in my understanding of what would appeal, because I'm a visual person, and I think that Kickstarter is a visual medium. I think you need to grab them with a really strong image and to pull people in so that they spend more than a couple seconds looking at it. And we did that with the cover for the part one. Rory really knocked it out of the park with a great arresting image that I think would have got attention. And so that, I think that's half the battle for the page. And then having more images, not relying on just one image. So I felt that we were in a good position there in terms of visuals. The hardest bit, I think, was, I know that a video is quite an important part of it as well, to make it look professional and to make your comic stand out. And I had no idea where to start with making a video. So I reached out to my brother, actually, who is a bit of an IT whiz, although not professional or graphic designer or anything like that. But he put something together which was good, I thought. And only recently with this second campaign have I discovered that there are websites, and now I'm going to fail to remember what it's called. But there's a website you can go to where you just say, you kind of type in what you're looking for, and you can pay someone really a bespoke.
Oh, like Fiverr.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can say, right, I need a video made from a Kickstarter campaign, and they'll say, okay, it's 60 quid or something. You're like, oh, okay. And it will come out and it'll really, really professional. And I didn't really realize that was a thing when I did my first one. So I didn't do it for the second one. I have to admit, I used my brother again because there was some continuity there. But for the next time, if I'm really trying to make it look like the bee's knees and make it look like a real, coming almost from a mainstream publisher, that might be the way to improve. And then the hardest thing apart from that, it was knowing what kind of rewards people would want or would like, and balancing that with the kind of the cost of the postage, and finding that right balance, because you don't want to offer loads of stuff and then you shoot yourself in the foot because it costs you a ton to send it, and then you end up massively in debt. So I tried to balance it with simple, light rewards, but what I think people would like the most, which is again the visuals, the artwork, additional artwork. And I had a bookmark, which I think is good because it's lightweight, but it's also really practical and it has the art element to it. And then some postcards, which gave me an opportunity to bring in different artists to create a new kind of aesthetic, but still based on the characters. So that was good, but I don't know, maybe I should have been a bit more daring. I don't know. What kind of rewards have you done?
Well, people love stickers.
Okay.
Stickers. I've gotten things like air fresheners in the mail.
Yeah.
I've gotten bumper stickers, window clings, temporary tattoos. I mean, just anything that can be used as a hook or kind of a gimmick, I guess, to sell your sell your books.
Yeah, we had commissions. Rory did some commissions. So that's good. And original art is more difficult because they don't know the comic. So that one's
Yeah.
harder. But and then appearing in the comic is a fun one, which I like to include, and I'll probably include that on all of them. I would have thought, because it's just a great idea. But other people do interesting stuff like a playlist to go with the comic, which is quite a cool idea. But again, I don't know if I wasn't brave enough to put myself out and try that, but maybe I'll do that next time. And t-shirts again, because no one's
T-shirts
heard
is
of
a
this comic before. I wasn't sure if anyone was really going to want to roll around town rocking a Hoards of Surrey t-shirt.
right. And you never know. It's like one of those things where you almost have to do a print on demand and wear it yourself, and people are like, "Oh, cool, sure. Where can I get one?" Yeah.
Yeah. If it looks cool, it looks cool at the end of the day.
And so how would you say your experience was, and what did you learn from the first one that you kind of carried over into this into your current one now?
I guess it's technical things like making sure you got your postage correct.
Yeah. Oh, did you get burned? Did you get burned?
Well, only a little bit. I have to admit, a small amount, because sometimes I hadn't quite. I think what it was with the stretch goals, that's what it was. I had an idea what the comic was going to cost and what an art print was going to weigh, and the envelope and all of that. So I had an idea of the postage was going to cost. But then when you get a bit giddy and you get a bit excited by stretch goals, you're like, you're going to get this and you're going to get that and you're going to get this. And then you add that all in and you're like, oh, that just doubled the price of the postage. Whoops. Yeah. So I kind of learned from that and kept the stretch goals quite simple, but also we're not blowing through the target like last time, so that's made it a bit easier. But yeah, stretch goals was definitely something I learned from last time. Make sure you factor them into your budget.
Well, we've got Mike Jemmy tuning in right now, and there's my partner creating chaos 24/7. Anybody who is tuning in live, whether you are watching from Comics and More New Jersey, Indie Volt, RAGIN AVC, and Geek Insider, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and share this out with your friends so people can see what we're talking about. Today, we've got Dave Wimblett, and we are talking about the Hoards of Surrey. And Dave, I know you've got to get going pretty soon, but let me do a quick little bump here so we can give some love. All right, you guys. So if you are trying to save for your Gemini mailers, make sure that you use coupon code VOLT10. Again, that is VOLT10 for a 10% discount on your Gemini mailers. Head over to GeminiComicsSupply.com and save a little bit of money on your shipping. Okay, and we are back. We've got Dave Wimblett here. Covert Comics. Tell us a little bit about that. Covert Comics.
Well, yeah, Covert Comics was just like, I guess I figured I needed a publishing name because I do want to do more comics, different stories. And so, it all needs to fit under the umbrella or something. So I just came up with that. And I think it was off the back of my Instagram, which is the Covert Creator, because I start in lockdown. I don't know if you got any hobbies that you were not expecting to start, but my hobby was toy photography and trying to pose toys as if they're real people and right up close and stuff. And it's great fun. And I would just go off on a walk and take my action figures with me and do some poses and stuff. And I got really into it. But I was like, I can't really put this on my Dave Wimblett Instagram because I don't know what my parents or my uncles and aunts will think.
It's like, oh, Lord, he's playing with toys again.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I need an alter ego, and being a bit shy and doing it all a bit under the table kind of thing. I went for covert. I thought it was quite a cool word. So yeah, that's where Covert Comics came from. But hopefully there'll be more titles that fit under the name in the not too distant future.
Okay, well, we are going to bring up your campaign, but I would love to hear about the plans for those other IPs. Have you been developing them already? Are you outlining them? What does that look like?
Well, I have one already written, which is more like a 6-part series. This one is just three parts, and this other one is it's funny actually. It's funny how inspiration comes to you, isn't it? Because my wife and I did a road trip in America, and we started in San Francisco. We went down to LA, went to an NBA game. We went to WrestleMania. We then drove to the Grand Canyon, and we went to Zion National Park. We did an epic road trip. And so we kind of, at the end of it, we we really, well, not at the end of it, throughout the whole trip, we were really tickled by the license plate of our rental car, which was 7D1KH080 or something like that. But anyway, it looked like it was called 7 Dick Hobo. And I just casually said that would be a great name for a comic. And then that's when your brain starts going, isn't it? You just start building and building and creating a thing. So I was like, oh, right. So it's about a car. And I was like, oh, but it's got to be more fun. So it's got to be about a taxi, and it teleports. And then it just sprawled from there. And I just developed this massive story. So that's actually my ultimate goal, is to, the Hoards of Surrey came up later in life, that idea. And that was a really fun story. But I'd already written the 7 Dick Hobo story, and I was really looking forward. This was kind of like a test run, I guess, for a Kickstarter. And that is the ultimate goal, is to try and get 7 Dick Hobo, because it's sci-fi, it's planet hopping. It could be really cool. So I've got that could be in line. You never know. And I had this other idea, which was which I've written because I've written lots of things just for fun. And this other one that I'd written was, I don't know if you've seen Okja. Have you seen Okja on Netflix?
No.
It's by the guy that did Parasite, that won the Oscar a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And it's about a giant pig, and this company that produces whatever the word is, what's it called when you in a lab you create kind of like cloning, but they made these giant pigs, I guess, for
my goodness,
feeding people more easily,
like genetic modification and all that stuff. Oh my gosh.
And so it's this whole sci-fi film, and it's a morality tale about, you know, the pigs and about meat eating, and it's a really good film. I recommend it highly. But off the back of watching that, I came up with this idea of like a prequel about some of these animal liberation fighters, but I went to the extent of contacting one of the writers or the producers of that film, who's English, and he actually got back to me and said, well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem kind of allowing you to do that, because I didn't know, can you just do that? I wasn't sure. Probably not on Kickstarter if the IP is already there. Right. And he was like, oh yeah, it's kind of fine by me, but you'd probably want to speak to Bong Joon-ho, who's like this world famous Oscar winning director. And I was like, he's probably not going to reply to my email. So I'm not sure that one will ever happen, but that was quite fun as well. But yeah, it's early days. I have a couple stories, but that's about it, really. I'm
telling you, I've heard a few people who had opened doors for them because they asked, because they dared to ask. So you never know. You never know. Oh my gosh, that sounds fun. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So let me get your campaign up here real quick so we can I know you said you didn't have a hard out, but we're going to try and get you out. We're almost at the 30-minute mark, so let's kind of fly. Well, we'll take our time, because I want to give this some proper love. The Hoards of Surrey Part 2 and the catch up, so people can catch up if they missed Part 1 of this. Do you mind? Do you know if you've got if it's public domain or the music is okay?
It is a friend of mine, and yeah, I'm sure it's absolutely
okay. Fine, all right. So if it's all right with you, I will play the video.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, perfect. That'd be cool.
All right, here we go. Can you hear that okay?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Perfect. Okay. So now, give us kind of the a rundown of what the story is about beyond the video, because
Yeah.
for those who are just listening in and not watching, um, they probably didn't catch the
Yeah.
words.
Yes. So my brother was trying to convince me to have a narrator, and I was like, no, let's just keep it simple. But you might be right for that reason. So basically, the tagline, or what do you call it, the elevator pitch that I
Yes.
use, which I feel is almost too good because it's so concise. I don't know what else to say once I've said it, but it's basically the Goonies meets the Inbetweeners, and I don't know if you know the Inbetweeners, but I gather the Inbetweeners has reached over to you guys over there. So it's basically like the Goonies, but set in England and with swearing.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it is. The genesis of it was I have a dog, and my wife and we walk the dog in the beautiful, very beautiful countryside where we live. And I just really kind of wanted to smush my two hobbies together, which was comics and just walking in, really idyllic woods and hills and landscapes. And I just wanted to see these places in a comic. And that's where the idea started. I was like, oh, how can I make that work? And then I don't really know how I got on the idea of treasure hunting, but it's basically about these 5 kids going looking for treasure in the English countryside, and this shady, secretive, not a cult, but like a group. It's their treasure, and so they're kind of watching the boys finding this treasure because they find a treasure map in a dusty old museum, and so they start finding the treasure. And then this group, which is called the Order of Surrey, they're this spooky group, and they start to make their presence known, let's say. And the first issue was really laying the groundwork for the kids, and now it's only a 3-part miniseries, so it wasn't meant to be a really protracted story. But the first part, was really laying the who are these kids and what's their life like, and then this second part is elevating and raising the stakes, and then the third part will be, the kind of big finale. So it's not a really long story, but it's hopefully a fun one.
Right. Now, yeah, I mean, it sounds a little bit like the Stand By Me. Are there dead bodies? Are there dead bodies here?
Oof, exactly. Well, no, I couldn't give that away, but
that's right. You have to buy the book.
You have to buy the book. That's definitely one of the influences. That kind of taking you back to your childhood and those relationships and the way you talk to each other. One of the things that I wanted to do with this comic, because of the Seven Dick Hobo sounds like a kind of comedy comic or comedy story, but I wanted to try and do something funny, if you know what I mean. And as a slight aside, I don't know that I've really read that many comics that I thought would properly kind of comedic. I don't know how successful it is, or I just haven't read the right comics. That kind of slapstick or just laugh out loud type humor in comics. I read Next Wave by Warren Ellis, which was, I think, the closest I've come across to like real slapstick type humor and just laugh out loud. And so I kind of wanted to have a go at doing a comedy comic. So I like to call it a comedy adventure comic.
Right. Now, how much of this story might be borrowed from young Dave's life?
Yeah, some people might say quite a lot, especially my friends who are clearly the characters in it.
Oh, do they know that?
Yes, they do. It's quite obvious. Some of them look very similar, but they've signed off on it. They're happy. I've picked and chosen personalities from friendship groups over the years. I feel almost bad about it because I've picked some people and not others. It's not like I love some of my friends more than the others. It's just the ones that have the more idiosyncratic characteristics
right,
are kind of the
just
ones
fit in with the
exactly
what's going on and
and making it that kind of zany kind of relationships. That's what I went for. Yeah, they know who they are. Yeah.
Have any of them ever come back to you and go, "What the hell, Dave? Like, why did you do this?"
I think they're, to be fair, no, not so far. I think they're quite chuffed to see themselves in a comic so blatantly. So one of them in particular, he keeps on trying to rally my other friends to back it, to make sure we got over the goal line, because he wants to continue seeing himself in a comic and showing it to his kids. He's got 2 little kids, and I think they're really, quite amazed to see their dad in a comic. Yeah, it's cool.
That is really cool. Now, if you were to kind of give an age range for your comic book, what would you say your target audience
I
is?
think it's because so there's a minor bit of underage drinking, and there's a little bit of I don't know. Well, no, I won't say that. It's a bit of a spoiler, but and there's foul language, so it's definitely like a 13 plus. I think it's not quite all ages, but it's not too
Right.
far off. It's not too far off all ages. The drinking, underage drinking bit is it's just for
Yeah, I
fun.
mean,
It's
they
just one
probably see
scene.
a
It's not
heck of a lot worse in the movies and on
exactly.
TV,
Yeah,
but
it's nothing
in a
drastic.
comic book, though, for
Yeah,
when it comes to that kind of medium, people are a little bit weird about that. Yeah.
yeah. And some of the language is slightly foul language, but I actually went through and did a redraft and kind
Mhm.
of toning down the language a little bit to make it a bit more um, youth friendly and family
Right.
friendly, and parents to be okay with it. So I think I like to think that I found a good balance, not being too crude.
Right, right. And so, like really quickly, if we could go through and kind of give a shout out to your team members and stuff.
Yep. Yeah,
Obviously,
that'd be
we've
cool.
got you
Yep. The next
with
is Rory
your
Donald. So Rory
uh-huh.
Donald is an amazing artist from Cornwall, down in the south coast of England. That's him,
Mhm.
and he's got his absolutely his own. Well, I keep saying this, absolutely his own style. He's unlike any of the other artists that I see, except for one, which is Mike Mignola from Hellboy.
Mm.
And I mean,
Mhm.
that's definitely an influence of Rory, but Rory definitely has his own style.
Sure.
So it really stands out from any of the other art that you might see on a Kickstarter campaign, where it's big muscles and it's quite it can be quite generic sometimes. Rory is totally himself, and
Mhm.
and then Ken Reynolds, who's the letterer, who does lots of British indie comics. If there's a British indie comic on Kickstarter, there's like a 50% chance that Ken did the lettering for it because he's just so good. He's very professional, and he's
Yeah.
great to work with and very easy to work with.
Have you ever tried lettering just to say, "Oh, I'm going to
No,
save myself a buck. Let me
not
try
even
and
tried it. Maybe I should. Have you done that?
I have. It was like probably the worst hell to get through the learning curve, and I'm not
Yeah,
saying I'm good by any stretch of the imagination, but
yeah,
it was more like a desperation thing. I was like, I'm available,
yeah, yeah.
and
And you
I
need to get
can
it done.
learn.
Yeah. The thing
I
with
had I
I was
had
just gonna
Anita though. I had
say, yeah,
Anita in the room who said, "It looks like crap. Fix your tails," or "Nah,
right,
you don't need that
right.
text." It was like, okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah. This is the thing. I have to admit, I don't know if I'm a perfectionist or what, but I feel like the lettering is a
Mhm.
real sign of quality and professionalism. Having that, professional grade to me really makes it look, like a professional comic. So that's why I wanted to pay someone that could do it better than I would be able to do it.
Yeah, they're like unsung heroes because
Yeah, absolutely.
really,
Yeah,
I mean, between your art and your words, you need somebody who can place those words and not overtake the art.
yeah,
And at the same time, you don't want it to get lost in the art either. So it's one of the difficult things to do. I think
mm,
um, it's definitely challenging, but
yeah,
I know for me, once I got over the learning curve, I'm like, I think I could do it, but I don't know if I would want to do anybody else's books, just
oh,
mine.
really.
I like the idea of being the writer and having the last like say,
Yeah, yeah,
literally going,
yeah,
I can fix this, I can change this dialogue a little bit
yeah,
to maybe even match the
yeah,
art a little
yeah,
better. So
yeah.
I mean, there are some benefits to it, but at the same time, it's like, oh my
Yeah, I think
gosh,
the other thing is the visual element of the lettering, the positioning and
Mhm.
sound effects. There's stuff that Ken has added that I hadn't thought of or I hadn't put in the script, and I'm like, oh, thank God you did that because that
Yeah.
makes such a huge difference to the overall experience.
hmm
Yeah, no, great.
And so we have blown past your 30 minutes, and we're
Yeah, no,
almost
that's okay.
at the 40-minute mark. And I appreciate you sitting here and spending the time now.
No, thank
Um,
you for having me. I appreciate being able to
for
talk about
anybody
it.
who is tuning in, so we've got 51 hours to go.
Yeah,
That's not a lot of time.
no, we're nearly there.
124 backers. That's pretty impressive, though.
Yeah, pretty good. I'm happy with that. The first one was 185, and for my first
Oh,
Kickstarter, I was like, wow, that felt huge. And
that is
I think
huge.
this kind of is evidence that that was huge. And getting to 125 or 124, I'm
Hmm.
really happy with. I really wanted to get to 100 at least. I wasn't sure if it was really sustainable telling a
There,
multi-part story without having some kind of a good base.
right.
So
I
yeah.
mean, there are some people who, I mean, they never hit the triple digits. So,
Mm.
I mean, this is really good that you've
Pulled
hit
in a
that
lot of
for.
favors.
And I've also noticed that a lot of times the second book um, may not do as well.
Yeah,
And I think part of the reason is like the first one, you're all excited, you're brand new, and people are kind of giving you the benefit of the doubt, right?
yeah,
They're like, okay, let's see what this guy can do. And
yeah.
then the second book, I think that's when you start weeding out the casual person who is just like, yeah, I saw his stuff. It's not really me, like
Mm,
not the thing that I'm into.
yeah,
And but the people who come over from book one tend to be like from your casual reader to maybe an advocate.
yeah.
They're the ones who are going to go out there and start sharing your stuff
Yeah, it
now.
does seem like that. I've had a few
Mhm.
people communicating throughout the campaign for this one who were
Yeah.
there in the first one, and it's been amazing. The um, dedication or the loyalty is not the right word because it's too early for loyalty, isn't it? But the just the interest and the
Hmm.
support from those particular people is really amazing, and I'm really grateful to all those people. And it's interesting actually for this one, I've had a guy in America reach out who's a retailer, and he's interested in buying a watch of part one and part two, and he seems really excited by the story. So that's amazing. We didn't have that in the first one, so
Hmm.
that's great. I'm just waiting to hopefully get that in just before the deadline.
Okay. And then, as the world is opening up, are you planning on going to certain events like Comic Cons or book fairs, book signings, and things like that?
I,
Where
I
where
I
are
don't
you
know. I
going
don't
to?
know at what point you decide that you've got enough content, enough material
Mhm.
for people to be interested in. I
Mhm.
was debating whether to do that now. If if we, God forbid, this one stays above the target, and we have part one and part two, and
Yeah.
then um, we have something real meaty for people to then want to uh, back the third and final campaign. So it feels like maybe this is the time.
Mhm.
Um, there's an amazing Comic Con over here. I don't know if you have you heard of Thought Bubble?
Yes.
Yeah, so Thought Bubble's probably one of the biggest in the world, and certainly the best over here, I would say, for comics, pure comics. And I've just missed the deadline, I think, for getting a table there.
Oh.
I was speaking to Rory. I was like, oh, maybe Rory's going to be there with his art, and no, he's not. He's just going as a punter or as a guest. Don't know
Hmm.
if you say punter over there, but
No, no, but I like the term.
yeah, punter, just going there as a fan. Um, so maybe not Thought Bubble, but maybe Thought Bubble next year, and then maybe a London one this year
Mhm.
potentially. I don't know. As a writer, it's a bit strange because I have the comic, which is fine, but then I have other artwork which I have paid for
Mhm.
from the artist. So I believe that it's within my right to sell those, which would be good. I think people would be interested in it. It feels slightly strange as a writer to go to one of the Comic Cons.
I've got a writer friend who she makes up a bunch of business cards and flyers,
Mm.
and instead of getting a table, she cosplays
Oh yeah, oh,
her
that's a good idea.
characters,
Yeah,
and then she kind of goes around and people snap pictures because
yeah,
she's all dressed up, and then she hands them a business card, and it
that's
usually
cool.
has a QR code to
Yeah.
where they can
Oh,
find her
nice.
book.
Very
So it's
professional.
like a very creative,
Yeah.
and at the same time she's having fun, and she's not tied down to a table because even though she's got several books, and one of her cosplays is uh, like this like zombie llama looking thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like bloody and gory and
Intentional
stuff like that,
branding.
but it's like a wagon, so she can put things in there. I
Yeah. Oh,
don't think
that's
that
cool.
she I don't
That's
think she
clever.
sells. I think that's a no. I mean, you don't
Yeah,
want to
that
get
would be, I
caught, but
guess,
at the
a
same time, it's
mobile.
really
Yeah,
kind of
totally.
clever that that she incorporates that. People stop, they ask her questions like, "Oh, what is that?" She's like, "Oh, it's one of the characters from my book. Here's my
Yeah,
card." You
yeah.
know, so um,
It'd be a bit strange if I went as a teenage boy there. I'm not sure I'd get away with that.
but there's got to be like an old curmudgeon in there
Oh
somewhere,
yeah, no.
right?
Some of the Order of Surrey, their costume, they have wear these robes with like animal skull masks. That would be quite
Right.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
could do
yeah, that
that.
would be kind
Yeah,
of fun.
good
Mhm.
idea. I like that. Speak to my wife about that. We go together.
I know. It's like, okay, where can we buy antlers and stuff
Yeah,
like that?
yeah,
She'll be walking in on you going, "What are you doing?"
yeah. Have you just killed that, or did you get the skull? What's for dinner?
I'm like, so, what's that smell?
Nothing. It's a
so,
surprise.
so again, anybody who's tuning in, the Hordes of Surrey Part 2, and you can catch up as well on the Kickstarter campaign,
Yeah.
A Very British Treasure Hunt.
Mhm.
124 backers right now, 51 hours to go. Make sure that you share this out with your friends, and it looks like a lot of fun. It kind of a throwback to even
Yeah.
my childhood. You know, we had my good set of friends where we'd go out and we would just do stupid stuff,
Yeah, just
or we
messing
would
around.
go on those treasure hunts because you just never knew. Where I grew up was upstate New York,
Oh yeah.
and every once in a while, you could go out there and just randomly dig, and you might
Yeah.
come up with like what looked like an Indian arrow,
Oh yeah.
or
Wow. Probably
or
pottery or something.
just random things, and so it was always fun to kind of go out and do some treasure hunting.
Yeah, and I wanted to do something a bit different to everything else, which is, either superheroes or zombies
Mhm.
or women with big boobs, to be honest. On
Yeah,
a lot of the Kickstarters, it seems to be one of those three things, and I just wanted to do something just old-fashioned adventure,
yeah.
having fun story,
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah, and I kind of get that nostalgic feeling and stuff like that. So I'm definitely going to be checking it out myself,
Yeah, awesome.
um, because I've got a granddaughter out
Oh
there,
yeah, no way.
and so I've got this small collection that's starting to grow of things that are
Yeah,
appropriate for her as she ages, and
oh, cool.
um,
It'd be
kind
ideal
of
for
kind of
her.
an onboarding thing for reading too, I
Yeah.
think.
I think it might be right, starting with comics. My parents always kept me away from comics. I think that's why I started so late. I think
Hmm.
my mum was a very academic, or she is very academic, and she thought it had to be books or nothing, and comics was, I don't know, the devil's work or something. But I wasn't allowed to read comics. But I'm inclined to agree with you that it's a good entry level to reading.
Sure.
Yeah.
For my own experience, growing up, my father was in the army. There were 4 kids. He's feeding 6 people, and we didn't have a lot of money, so we had the Sunday paper, and so it had a really large comic section. So I
Mm,
grew up with like Beetle Bailey and um, Dottie.
right.
Um, you know, I think what was it, King Valiant and things like that. So kind of growing up with all of those things, Heathcliff and
Mm,
Blondie and all those things, um, and just had a love of storytelling. But I didn't have. I don't think if I was in my teens or 20s, I would have had the patience to do comics. I'm kind of glad that I'm doing it
mm,
now.
yeah.
Um, because there was for me that steep learning curve. I mean, I understand scripting. I've done um, well attempted screenplays and things like
Mm,
that, but I never understood the difference between like a comic book script and maybe a movie script
right.
until I sat down and realized, oh, there's a page turn. It's not like
Yeah.
it's not a visual thing. So there were a lot of little things that I've been learning along the way.
Mm,
um, not not for the faint of heart.
yeah.
It's one of the hardest things that I've personally ever done, but
And you're always going to get better at it, aren't you, as you
eh,
go?
yeah, I mean,
There's always something to learn.
I find that it's really touching on all of the creative things that I do. How do you feel about the creative process? I mean, is this something that this is what you want to do? Is it like something that you want to make a career from eventually,
That's an interesting
perhaps?
question, isn't it? Comics is like the one creative, well, I don't know if it's the one, but it's a creative medium where it's so difficult to make real money, isn't it? And make a career.
Hmm.
Um, the percentage of people that are making a career of it compared to the number of people that are doing it and producing good stuff,
Yeah.
is tiny, isn't it? So I think at my elevated age, I'm somewhat a realist. So I don't see myself giving up my day job
Yeah.
anytime soon. I like being able to write as a hobby and kind of doing both and being able to still earn money in a
Hmm.
more reliable way. But in an ideal world, yeah, I guess I would just sit down and write stories all day. That would be amazing. I don't think it's realistic, probably. But you never know.
You
Writing
never
one and
know.
then two stories and then just putting
Hmm.
it in front of the right people, you never know.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people, they've put in decades of time and effort into developing their stories, still maintaining that daytime job.
Mm,
Um, and then all of a sudden, their book starts to take off,
yep,
and they're like, oh, okay, well, I can do this. This is what I want to do.
yep.
Several examples of that, and it's kind of funny too, because once it starts taking off, all of a sudden, because they're new to you,
Mm,
for example, all of a
yeah.
sudden they're like this overnight success. It's like, no, you didn't see the decade of work that I've done.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. I've been toiling away for years. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't think it's not the kind of thing where you want to just comics. You want to take the plunge and be like, right, I'm just going to give up my job and I'm just going to go for it. It's not one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to do both at the same time and then work out when it's the right time to give
Hmm.
up the day job, I suspect. Yeah.
Well, Dave, I really wish you luck. And again,
Thank
for
you.
anybody who's tuning in, The Hordes of Surrey Part 2 and the catch up is on Kickstarter right now. He's only got 51
Yeah,
hours and
Saturday.
counting.
Yeah,
Saturday,
Saturday it
okay?
ends. Yeah.
And so he's over goal right now, but I wasn't sure because I was
Mm.
scrolling through and trying to pay attention to you, Dave.
Yeah.
Stretch goals. Do you have any?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I've collaborated with another comic writer from Australia
Hmm.
who's kindly given me a copy of one of his comics, which is going to be free for everyone if we hit 2,000.
Oh, there we go,
And
right there.
yeah, XCT. Apparently, he tells me, because I'm not in Australia, I don't know these things. He says it's the #1 selling indie comic in Australia, which is amazing. And it looks cool. I did back one of the other ones, not that specific one, and it was really
Uh-huh.
good actually. Kind
Okay.
of gladiator style story. And then the other one, which will be hard pushed to get to 2,500, is a beer mat. What with pubs and beer being a
Nice.
British tradition, but also featuring quite heavily in the story, especially in part one. Mocked up or designed a beer mat, and I've worked out the budget and how much that would cost and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that that's quite a good thing because again, it's practical, something people could actually use. I wanted stuff that was
Sure.
too
And for the
multi-purpose.
American audience, that is a coaster. Okay.
Yeah, coaster.
Save
Sorry.
your coffee tables.
Yeah, okay, yeah, not a beer mat, a coaster. Yeah.
Right. And so a lot of times people in the American audience, they see the pound sterling sign and they get a little bit scared.
Oh, really?
How is shipping as far as maybe going to the United States?
I have to admit that it is quite expensive. But what I did was I factored in that I would cover free postage for the UK of
Hmm.
about a couple quid for the comic, and I'd factored that into the rest of the world as well. So then I
Hmm.
worked out what the actual cost to ship would be and deducted, I would take that same cost out from the
Right.
shipping. So I think it's something like I can't remember now, like £4 for the comic or £6 when
Hmm.
there's extra awards in there, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah. Okay. Something that I'll definitely take a look at, because from the United States to like Australia, the shipping is ridiculous, but
Yeah.
going across the pond is not so
Yeah,
bad.
maybe not quite so bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've tried to keep it realistic and
Hmm.
practical.
Yeah, so it's not so cost prohibitive
Yeah.
because that's another thing. You know, again, with the American audience, you know, they look at that and they go, "That's not a dollar sign. It's going to be too much. Like, I don't want to pay that much for shipping." But
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I can imagine.
think that you'll
But
be
that's
okay.
why I mean they've got the digital option. So if people would like to read the story but put off by the shipping price, I'd absolutely
Mhm.
love it if they went for the digital instead of not doing it.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And so, Dave, we almost pushed to an hour, so I apologize for
No,
blowing
that's
past
me. I
your
whittled on a
hour.
bit too much.
Well, I appreciate you spending the time and talking to us about this. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Wimblett, which is what I was called throughout my childhood, so that's quite convenient. It was available.
Nice.
And on Instagram, it's the_covert_creator.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's it. You can see all my childish toy photos, but also artwork from the comic and pencil pages and all the behind the scenes stuff.
Okay, and for anybody who's watching on the replay, we've got the Instagram, Facebook, and the Kickstarter links. So make sure that you hit those and follow him. Just don't peek in his windows because that's kind of rude and weird.
Yeah.
Dave, anything else that you want to share
No,
with
that's
our
it.
audience before we say goodbye?
That's all. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been really nice to talk to you.
It was a pleasure. I love the creator journey, and I wish you good luck with your Kickstarter, the Hordes of Surrey. Looking forward to the part 3 whenever that comes out too.
Yeah. Hopefully
Um,
next year.
okay, so that's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
In the meantime, you guys head over to Kickstarter, give them some love, and let me put the card up here. So this has been episode 24 of Ragin' With. Our special guest is Dave Wimblett today. The Hordes of Surrey is on Kickstarter, and you can catch up with the first book as well. Hey, Dave, can you do me a favor?
Yep.
Say, throw my dudes.
Throw my dudes.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.